Okay, so welcome to part 3 of my video tutorial about HDR photography. Today I will show you how to use Photomatix Pro to get realistic looking results. Unfortunately, over the web you can find tons of surreal images that gave HDR photography its bad name. They are surreal, grungy, oversaturated, have haloing artifacts and so on. I don't like such images. I prefer natural looking images. I think that HDR is just a tool that can help us to create better photos. Okay, so first I would like to show you 3 images I took last autumn in Polish Tatra Mountains. Here is the first one, here is another one, and one more. They are all HDR images processed in Photomatix Pro, yet they are quite natural, and at first glance it might be difficult to tell, if you don't know me, that they are in fact HDR photos. Okay, so now I will go to the images which I would like to process today with you. It's almost the same image as the one I showed you before. Okay, I have 5 images. I will use export from Lightroom. However, if you don't own Lightroom, then fair enough, you can also, as I said last time, load the images directly into Photomatix Pro. Okay. I would like to show you one thing before going into Photomatix. It's sometimes good to know whether there are any ghosts in the image. Okay, so I will zoom in. You can press space key if you're in Lightroom. Okay, let's focus on the grass here. Okay, let's move to the another image. I don't know if you noticed, but the grass moves. There is some movement in the grass, and it means that there are ghosts that need to be removed. Okay, without further ado, now we can export to Photomatix Pro. Right click on your images and select export to Photomatix Pro. I will align my images, crop line to result. Okay. I will also show options to remove ghosts, as there are ghosts definitely in the grass. As the image was shot at ISO 100, I won't reduce noise, and also I will leave reduce chromatic aberrations unchecked to save some time. Okay, let's hit export, and now wait. Okay, so we are now in the ghosting preview window, and we can remove ghosts. Let's zoom the image a little bit. Okay. I will use 0 EV photo as my base explorer. There are 5 photos in this case, and let's start moving the ghosting slider. Please also note that I'm using automatic deghosting, as it will be easier to get rid of the ghosts than by selecting all the regions manually. Let's start with very mild. There is hardly any difference. Let's move it a bit further. Still not much difference. Okay, some ghosts started to appear here. Okay, so we need to move our deghosting slider even further. Still there are some ghosts. Unfortunately, we need to move it to the very strong area. It unfortunately means that there might be some artifacts introduced by the ghosting algorithm. But okay, we'll leave it with this. Okay, now click on the OK button. In this case, ghosts are pretty strong. The artifacts are pretty strong, as the wind was blowing and each frame was completely different. The grass was moving all the time. And we would like to get realistic looking results, not something grungy, because we can easily get grungy artifacts. I will show you by doing. Okay, it's very surreal, and unfortunately many people create such images. It's not good. A good way to start creating realistic images is to select realistic presets from the combo box category, you have here a lot of presets that give quite natural results. You can go through them using your left and right arrow keys on keyboard. And yes, the images are pretty natural, okay? I think this one looks good. For example, it's soft 3, but there are more, soft 4 maybe. They are all quite natural. Okay, I will select soft 3 from now. For now. Basically, if you're using details enhancer, the key to get realistic looking results is to use small strength and large lighting adjustments. Okay, these two are the most important. I will move them okay, in the opposite directions, and we get surreal results. And I will undo. So as you see, strength and lighting adjustments are the two sliders that affect realisticness of the result most in Photomatix. Basically, you need to move, if you want to get natural results, you need to move the slider in the direction suggested by this contextual text at the bottom. In this case, it says that strength affects the degree to which contrast and detail are enhanced in the image. A value of 100 gives the maximum amount of enhancement. And now is the most important part. To get a more natural effect, move the slider to the left. And as you can see, it indeed is true. Strength slider is moved to the left and the image is pretty natural. Okay, you need to read descriptions of sliders, and if you follow them, most of the time you will get very natural looking results, and also halo free, what's also important. In case of lighting adjustments, it's most of the time good to avoid Surreal and Surreal Plus if you're in lighting effects mode, and also negative values. But remember to follow the advice given at the bottom. If you don't see this box here, it might look like this. Just click on this very button and you will see it. Although Details Enhancer can produce very nice results, there is also Contrast Optimizer, which also produces very natural results that go to default. Basically, a key to get natural looking results is to focus on light and detail in case of tone mapping. After you exit Photomatix, you can add color. I could of course add saturation or change color temperature here, but let's face it, these are just two sliders. In Photoshop you have numerous tools that can help you in improving color. Okay, so Photomatix is most targeted towards focusing on or editing light to get correct exposure. And let's look at my histogram here. It's correct, okay? I don't have any blacks nor white clips, so my HDR was correctly tone mapped. In case of this image, I in fact prefer our Details Enhancer. Okay, maybe there is a bit of white clipping, so I will move white point a bit to the left to avoid it. Let's take a look at the histogram as it changes as we move the slider. Okay, the image might look flat, but it will be easy to post-process in Photoshop or Lightroom or any other editor of your choice. GIMP, for instance. Okay, I'm fairly happy with my image, so I will save and re-import. Okay, here is our image. Let's take a look at the path, for instance. In this case it was overexposed. Now it's correctly exposed. Okay. Also, the clouds will have more detail. Okay, the color might be not here, not in the image, but it's easy to improve the image. Just go to develop model, or if you're using another tool, you can follow the same. And in Lightroom, you can do your editing. You can do it in Photoshop, for instance. You can start by clicking on the auto button, okay, to get the correct exposure. Now, use highlights to restore clouds. Maybe the exposure is a bit too much, okay. Let's brighten shadows a little bit. Let's add some contrast. There is still too much white here, so I will reduce, just slightly exposure, okay. And then I can add a vibrance, okay, add clarity, not too much, and you can also edit saturation of colors, for instance, or luminance. Let's make blues brighter, okay, and let's saturate green and yellows a little bit. Okay, I will decrease exposure still because the path is still a bit too bright, so I will use exposure of plus 0.5 and I will brighten the shadows instead. Okay, let's compare our tone mapped and finished image. Okay, as you see, our tone mapped image, the output from Photomatix is fairly flat, it lacks color, yet it has all details in both shadows and highlights, so it has correct exposure, what's most important. It also has details, what's also important. In post we can add colors, we can tune exposure, we can add contrast to make the image look as we want. So the key to get natural looking results is to post-process your images from Photomatix Pro. In Photomatix Pro you need to get flat image that you can edit further. You need to avoid creating halos, so you need to use settings that are described as natural. That's the key. If you follow the advice Photomatix gives you, most of the time you will end up with very natural looking results. Okay, in next part I will focus on more specific uses of HDR. I will focus on creating indoor HDR photos, on avoiding halo artifacts, which are sometimes can still happen even with using natural settings. Okay, so thanks for watching and see you in next part.